Hello and welcome. We are Del and Debbie's Mind, Body, Soul, the home of invigorating talk on everything to do with health and well-being. And I am one of your co-hosts. I'm Del A.D. Jones, and I'm a certified 3 Principles coach, teacher, and practitioner. And I help my clients achieve a more joyful, beautiful, peaceful life, regardless of their external circumstances. And next to me today, I have my wonderful co-host, Debbie Boyle.
Hello, Del. Yes,
Hi.
We're sitting in 2 different slots. We're not side by side, and we're going to talk about that in a second. I am Debbie Boyle, and I'm the other half of Del and Debbie Mind, Body, Soul. And I am certified as a personal trainer, a fitness instructor, and an integrative nutrition, health, and wellness coach. And I help people find balance in their life with everything that feeds us, in addition to the food on our plate. And if you read any of our social media announcements, it said that we have a big announcement today.
Yes.
And we do. And it's a new year, and there's some transitions or change happening, which is always, I think, a positive and good thing.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to just go and say it,
just
but
say it.
Del
You're
and
keeping everybody
I
in suspense.
are parting, and we are actually about to co-host our own shows individually. And today's show is devoted to just that, us talking about the reasons, the direction we're taking, and where we've been, and how grateful we are for the last 2.5 years of the time that we had together in doing Del and Debbie Mind, Body, and Soul. So we're going to get on with what our shows are going to be, what we're going to do. We do invite you to call in. I think the call-in number is the same.
It's still the same. Yes, we are in a different studio, you might tell.
Yes.
But the call-in number is the same, and that is 323-284-7826.
So call in today, because we're going to talk about some past shows. We're going to talk about future shows. And if you have a question or you want to make a comment about a show that you liked, do so. That's what we're going to devote this entire 50 minutes to, is where we've been and where we're going. So we want you to become part of that conversation. So let's start with what made us decide to do our own shows. How did that naturally come to this place that we're at right now, and what they are?
Yeah, well, for me, I mean, and we've talked about this together, we just had so many people requesting to be guests on our show that we just started to think, wait a minute, we have more guests than we have time on the air. And so we thought, what a great idea if we both we're still going to keep our Del and Debbie. We need to say that first on the top.
Yes, yeah.
We are still doing Del and Debbie.
That,
It won't be running every week. It'll probably just be every few months or so, a couple of months or so. But in addition to that, Debbie and I are both doing our own shows, which we're so excited about. And again, just sort of more bang for your buck, basically. It's this way we have 2 guests on our shows, 2 different subjects rather than just one subject a week. So we're going to have 2 different subjects a week. My show is just going to focus on my particular area of expertise right now, which is coaching with the 3 principles. And I'll get into that a little later.
Yeah, we'll talk about what that is.
Yeah, what that is and why I really wanted to hone in on that. And Debbie can describe what she wants. Well, she's continuing the show. She's going to be doing.
I am. I'm going to be a little bit broader in that sense, in that I'm a health and wellness show. And so I want to keep the conversation going about. My show is actually going to be called Conversations to Connect with a Healthier You. And the reason being is I think there's so much, which is the reason why Del and I talked about doing the show in the first place 2.5 years ago. Stuff is thrown at us constantly. We're bombarded with the latest and greatest in diet, in exercise, in, facial potions, and everything that gets thrown at us becomes confusing.
Just for me.
Should I be doing that? Shouldn't I be doing that? Why are they doing that? How come there's this, they're fads. They become, the latest and greatest thing that you need to get. So we're going to my show will help break that down and say, okay, so this is a fad, and here we're going to answer your questions about trying to get an expert within that fad, within, let's say, the keto diet, which is, the last fad of the last few years.
To me.
It is, whether or not you should stay on it and all of that. So I'm going to bring the experts in and I'm going to be an interactive show. And so there can be conversation with the audience, again, so you can call in just the way we've been doing, Della and I, and ask questions to whoever the expert is so you can get the answers to those fads and those latest and greatest things. And I'm, still going to feel out what, the other modalities within the health and wellness field, from natural paths and products and all kinds of things.
That's the other thing. Shared on your website, you're going to have a chance for people to check in and see what guests you've had, but also what the products that you endorse, which I think is fabulous.
Yes, different, because I get asked all the time, being a nutrition and health and wellness coach and a trainer, I get asked all the time, what are the supplements I should be taking, and why, and when, and how, and what's this celery juice craze, and all of that. So I'm gonna have a whole product page that I'm now building on my website. Dell and I are rebranding ourselves separately from the brands. Again, both of us are going to have new logos that are coming very soon. Both of us.
I think we have samples.
Yeah, we have some. We have sound bites, some hints. So we're still finalizing.
Little touches there, but just as like Debbie is really honing in on all the health and nutrition and well-being that we've done all along. I'm going to be doing more, as I said, 3 principles based. There are so many teachers all over the world that are incredible, and I just want to give them a platform on our show, or my show now, which is going to be called Insightful Conversations with Del Edie Jones, and to just get this message out to more people. I mean, it's had such a profound effect on my life.
Yes,
I just want to share it. And so I really want to sort of laser into that one particular type of coaching, whatever you want to call it. It's coaching, whether you're a practitioner or a teacher, and just help people gain the same sort of incredible levels of peace and contentment and joy that I'm experiencing in my life lately.
So wonderful. So what are and these these different coaches? They're all over the world.
That's the thing. A lot of them are in California, which we'll be having people coming into the studio for interviews. A lot of the teachers are in Europe and the UK. And Canada and a lot of different places. So this is going to give me an opportunity to really widen out. I'll be having them zoom in and be interviewing them that way. Most of them visit LA at some point or another, so I'm just going to try and organize it for when they're in town. But for those that don't travel, because a lot of these teachers are what we call first-generation teachers, and, the Pranskys and Elsie Spittle and Dick and Bettinger, all these names. I mean, you're going to become familiar with them as they start having them on the show.
That's a big part of what the show is going to do, is bring them to the light of your audience.
Exactly. And so I'm thrilled. Yeah. I've already got...
It's exciting stuff.
Yeah. So many people on board that are ready to come on and start. So...
That's just wonderful. And, the thing that I love about what we do, it's not just this moment that you can catch us. People work, people are busy, we're in the middle of a day, which Dell is going to be keeping the 1 p.m. time slot, and I'm going to the 2 p.m. time slot, just FYI, here at UBN. So, and that's Pacific Coast time.
Yes, Pacific Coast time.
So what I like is the fact that we have platforms now like Instagram and our individual websites, and then our business websites and our Facebook pages and, LinkedIn
channels.
And YouTube channels and all kinds of things that have the links to all of our shows. So if you miss something and it's of interest to you, you just click on the link. And I have been so fortunate. I know we're going to talk about this and some of what we've been able to accomplish in the last 2.5 years. I work at 3 gyms, and so that puts me in 3 locker rooms. So the best conversations, I've talked about this before on the show, happen in women's locker rooms. I can't attest to men's locker rooms, but I can to women. And there's so much networking going on in there because there's a lot of literal undressing in there.
Yeah.
So people are in there without makeup, putting on products. People are there without clothes, putting on different designers, shoes. And, people are in there talking about different ailments or restaurants that they've gone to that are healthy.
Wow.
Or things that they've tried, different diets and exercises. A big conversation there because most of them are just walking off the floor from either a class or a workout. So it gives me a platform. It's really given me an
That's
opportunity
very cool.
to
You
talk
need to have
about
a show broadcast in the
gym.
gyms.
Yeah, in the women's locker room.
Yeah.
So I've met, a lot of people in that locker room that have put me in different directions and in touch with a lot of guests that have been on our show. And one of the things that I've done really with the networking is sending people or sending them a link personally to one of our shows that has to do with them because there was a woman I was talking to in the locker room a few months ago who had really bad eczema. Eczema comes from stress comes from many different things as we've done shows on, but it has a lot to do with diet and exercise and what's missing, what's in and what's out, and what you should be and should not be doing. So I sent her our show,
Which show on?
When we were talking about eczema and we were talking about, I can't remember which show.
Well,
it
I'm
was.
just thinking, I remember when we had Jo Leaders on, she was talking about the infrared saunas.
Right,
and
that kind of thing and how it
is
can help.
apparently an excellent way to the infrared is great for things like skin conditions.
Yeah, to heal. It was actually someone we had on, a nutritionist, and I think it may have been, so we've been at two different networks here at UBN Go, and we were also at
LA
Talk Live. And so we have almost 100, 70 shows there, maybe.
We're definitely well over we've been doing it for 2.5 years. Let's do the math there.
Yeah,
So
except that we've been here for a year.
Almost a year.
Yeah,
exactly.
A year in March. And so it's just being able to just float a show to people on relationships when someone's having a really bad breakup.
And I'm just thinking of some of the shows too, like we had the cigarette whisperer.
Yes.
And then we had the sleeping expert. And then we've had, and
there are so many people that you talk to. Sleep is a huge thing. And I've tossed that show to at least 4 or 5 people.
And it is because we live in stressful times, and this is the time when we wake up at 3:00 in the morning.
Yes.
Talking from experience here.
Oh, yeah.
And just start worrying. So if
and then can't get back to sleep needing the tools. And a lot of people, as we did this show, we realized there are a lot of people that can't fall asleep from the get-go the first place, and let alone waking up. And so these kinds of things are real.
All of the shows we've done over the last 2.5 years, what would you say has been your greatest takeaway?
Well, okay, that's a loaded question because I'm going to ask you the same thing. So, okay, I started this whole, adventure, should I say, because I really am passionate about longevity with quality. And so one of the things I wanted to do was to get all this information I was absorbing and reading about and learning. I've been in school for the past 3 years, and I really wanted to get it out there. And my biggest takeaway is there are 2 things. One is the quality and the amazing passion and devotion of the people that we've had on the show about what their specialty is. Whether it's the sleep expert or the cigarette whisperer or the relationship coach, or, we've done so many nonprofits, these people that are volunteering their time for the greater good, that I would never have met those people if they didn't either find us or we didn't search them out to come onto our show. And then the information that not only we were able to absorb and get from that, but what we were able to share, again, being able to have those links and help the greater good.
Well, you've stolen my answer. I was going to say the same thing.
But it is true.
It's the same thing.
How can you deny it? It's so
I
there.
know exactly. I was going to say it is. I mean, I we just met some amazing people
Right.
doing things I'd never even heard of before. And, we're both perpetual students. We both just want to keep learning.
Can't stop.
But when you meet somebody that's an absolute expert in their field and the depth that they can go into that subject, that's what actually inspired me to start thinking about really honing in on the 3 principles. Because I could just, as I say, hang out, meeting new people, new subjects all day long. And but I just feel there's also a really great quality to honing in your specialty, your area of interest. So it's so laser visioned, so that when people are just like we were so excited when we found these people that, I'm just trying to think some of the others that we've had on that just, a lot of the 3 principles teachers that we had on as well, just how inspired I was and how deep the conversation can go.
Right. When you have a single point of focus like that is your passion.
Yeah.
And that, some could say that I'm a little spread out in the health and wellness field. That could be a detriment because, like you said, when you have a passion and you just zero in on that, you resonate, and that's where people can really, really, really benefit from what you have to say and what you have to share and what you know, all the things you can do for them.
But I think you've always said, I know the book you're writing right now, it's, give the title.
It's Age Young is a working title. It's always, for me, longevity with quality.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. So
to
I think
live
you
your
do
best
have
life.
a very, very tight focus.
Right.
It's anything that can help you, age young, age, as we're both in our 60s now. I just turned 60.
Dell just turned 60. Can you believe it? I can't believe it.
So, but it's just how to sort of maintain a happy, healthy life as we get older, because we're going to be sticking around a lot longer than
absolutely.
than
and quality
other
and
people.
longevity. There's a lot of little subtitles that can go under that. So my show is going to be called, which I had mentioned, Balanced Life with Debi Carlin Boyle, Conversations Connecting to a Healthier You. Because there's so much, I think, balance, alignment of all the things. And I talk about it in, my opening dialogue. There are many things that feed us in addition to the food on our plate.
Yeah.
When something's off balance, it usually shows up in other places. And it's got a lot to do with self-care, because that's the first thing to go. And there are a lot of ways self-care can go by the wayside. And for me, it's important to get people on board with coming back to the center, coming back to the middle. And yes, we're going to have moments of joy. And yes, we're going to have moments of wealth. And, things are definitely, we're ever evolving. We're ever roller coaster.
It is a roller coaster.
But when something's low and keeps going down, that's where I come in as a health coach, and I work with people individually. But that's also how I want my show to sort of help people, because somebody's going to find that one thing that's taking them down.
Yeah.
And then that way, and I just feel so compelled to be able to get information out there, because it isn't one single thing for me that keeps you aging young.
Exactly. And that, again, to go back to what I'll be doing, it's really just to show that the practical applications of the 3 principles, like I mentioned, we're going to be having guests, or I'm going to be having guests rather, that work in the prison system. Years and years of experience where the recidivity rate, I can never say that word.
It's a tough one.
It's a tough one. Don't try and do that on air. It's so much lower when the inmates have been exposed to the 3 principles. They really understand that they've really been thinking that, or rather they have a thought to maybe do something, and they don't realize that that's just a thought and it can pass, and you don't have to act upon that thought.
A thought to do something negative.
Yeah, to do
or
something
to do
that
something
has
positive.
Well, negative as in
what got them there in the first place.
In the first place.
Got you.
And that it was just, it was just a thought that they took seriously. They acted upon it, and it had dire consequences. But going back out into the world, they don't have to sort of define themselves by an action they did in a moment of time.
Right.
That every moment, every second is actually a new opportunity to how you show up in the world. And also, forgiving yourself. Most people do the best they can given what, the quality of their thinking at the time. So it's not like somebody woke up in the morning and said, I intend to sort of be really bad today or hurt somebody or do something illegal. A lot of people feel that they don't have any choice, and that there's their background or their circumstances or whatever it is, whatever thought they're having in that moment that they use to justify that action is just a thought.
That's really interesting, because until you just said that, I never thought about the application of the 3 principles in the prison system. But wow, how powerful.
It is. And it's, so I'm going to have Kathy Casey, her name is, she's going to come on and talk about that. We have people that are using it in the schools, in high school. So much bullying is alleviated from that, because everybody has respect for the other person. They understand that we're all human. We're all doing the best we can, given the quality of our thinking. And also to respect that we all have separate realities. We're all basically walking around in a little thought bubble of
what is that? How many thoughts do we have?
It's something like 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day.
A day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. They just run through us.
And whether or not we allow them to penetrate is up to us.
Well, exactly.
And how our application of the 3 principles comes into play.
That we just don't really have a choice of the thoughts that run through us. I say a thought, say a negative thought. My analogy is it's like the bothersome neighbor. You can't control your neighbor that likes to keep knocking on your door unannounced, and I for one like people to call ahead of time, but some people
that only happens in soap operas. But I get what you're saying when you have a neighbor that's right next
just
door.
Like he's hammering on your door when you're doing something. But it's the same with a negative thought. They are going to come and visit. That we're human. It's going to happen. Now, whether you open that door and invite them in and say, hey, hang out for a while. Do you want a cup of tea? And it's really, and it's not to say that when you ignore them and you don't allow them in, that they don't, they're not persistent. Sometimes they just are. But just to know that you don't have to do anything about them. You don't have to change them. Just like you wouldn't try and change your neighbor into a different type of neighbor. You just wouldn't do that.
No, right.
You just accept that that's the way they are. And just the same as a thought. So you don't try and judge them and say, well, you're a negative thought and you shouldn't be calling upon me and I should know better than this and I'm spiritual.
Yeah.
You
and how you handle it. And I love that you're talking about kids and people incarcerated and people who you otherwise would never break that barrier or break that pattern.
Well, they're using this
because you and I are good subjects. We're like willing participants because we're ready, willing, and able to become a better person.
Yes.
It's not so much with kids.
Well, and also just and sometimes I was just listening to Jack Pransky's book on the way over here, and he's to be a guest as well, hopefully. I'm trying to think if I've reached out to him yet or not. But, he's done work in, drug and gang-infested neighborhoods that have completely turned around. Neighborhoods that the police wouldn't even go into. They were basically just let them kill themselves in there. They wouldn't risk their own lives by going in. And neighborhoods in Chicago and Florida, where they've completely turned around once they had this understanding.
So are these like workshops that they create in these areas or in prisons or in schools?
They do things differently.
Okay.
We'll learn more about that when I have the guests come on, because it's a great question because I don't know the answer to that.
How the application of it is for them.
Certainly
so
in the prison system. In the prison system, it was an ongoing workshop that was offered, and I think certain people for participating were showing a willingness to learn a better way of life.
Right.
So, and then when they saw the effects it was having on the prisoners, it was just incredible. Then it was almost
like you have to take that and run with it. Yeah, and use it.
The other ones, I don't know the exact details of how they apply. I know in schools, I'm talking to my school district about possibly doing it at the Boys and Girls Club. So I don't.
Oh, nice.
It's in places
and you would
like
do it
that.
how? Like a workshop, like workshops, after school workshops,
exactly,
that the kids can join to see how they can use that and be really. It's bettering themselves and their quality of life.
Absolutely, and also they're even doing it in within Israel with the Israelis and Palestinians. they're doing sort of seminars and things like
Wouldn't
that.
that be amazing
I know.
to be able to have people? I mean, because when you think about it, and when we talk about, I don't know if anybody just saw, but I got obsessed with the Dirty John. It was a podcast.
I know.
that was turned into a little mini series on Bravo.
I haven't seen it
And
yet. I'm dying
I
to see it.
binged watched it over the holidays, and actually the final episode was on this past Sunday, the finale, and it's well known because it happened.
Yes.
You know, it's a true story. But the thing about John was he was a product. His father was a con man, and has from a very early age, his father taught him how to be a con man, but didn't show him any love.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, I'm not quite sure they didn't depict where the mother was in the life of him and his sister. But the father was a huge, I mean, like he had this love-hate relationship with his father, but it's all he knew.
Yeah.
So he grew up to be a con man to a point where he was so good at it, he could just go, as soon as trouble came in from one area, he would leave that situation and go to another and start new.
Yeah.
And nobody knew because he was such a good con man, to a point where it came to this finality. And you think about how to be able to get to the, like, for instance, if he was in school and he applied the 3 principles early on in life and had the tools to be able to do that, chances are he wouldn't have grown up and done such horrible things to people as he got older.
That's so funny because as I was saying, listening to Jack Prancy's book on the way over, he talks about this young gang member who had been in generations of the same gang. I mean, his father and his grandfather had been in the same gang. And when
Familiarity.
Exactly. I mean, and it's sort of almost like, you know, that's your bond you have with your family of origin, is to continue in their footsteps. But to just realize that you can actually take a different path, and that you're not, letting them down or being disrespectful or disloyal by choosing another path.
And you give them the conscious the conscious tools to be able to do that.
Well, what this thing about the 3 principles is there are no tools or techniques to use or apply. It just really helps people understand their experience of life is created from the inside out, not the outside in. And a lot of people that feel victims of life act out or feel entitled to, just as in, the man that grew up in the with a con man father. I mean, somewhere along the line, he was fed the belief that from his father that this is the way you behaved in the world, and this is what you do.
This is how
this
you
is
show
the only
up.
way you can survive.
That's right.
And if you're not getting something over somebody else, then you're the victim. You're either the victim or the perpetrator in situations like that. And to give somebody the tools to understand that labels and identifying with thoughts that we have as this is me, that we can really just like put ourselves into a very, very small, little box.
That
and so
you just keep staying in,
exactly.
and you actually escalate it worse.
Totally.
You make it you make things. I mean, if you watched this series, you would just see that it just got worse and worse, and he just
it's
became
only one way down. I mean, it spirals.
It was. And
so this is just an understanding.
Such a good
it's
principle.
a way to have people be aware. I mean, it's not advice, it's not giving skills or tools, as I said, because, we all have our own innate well-being within us, and, and we all have access to that wisdom and guidance. You can call it the intelligence behind life, you can call it God, you can call it spirit, you can call it soul, whatever. I mean, it's named so many different names for the same thing, but it's that consciousness that lies deep within us that we all have, that can never die, it can never be harmed, it can never be, some people, especially in situations where somebody's been abused, they feel damaged, they feel like they're marked for life. Well, the reality is, we are not our physical bodies. I mean, that's part of us. I mean, we are here on this planet living a human life, but it's not the whole of who we are. And our essence, it doesn't matter if we've been beaten or abused. There's a part of us, there's a part at our core that can never be tainted, can never be damaged, can never be broken.
I love that. And to help people realize that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And give them, yeah, I mean, God, I think about, and this is all over the news right now, but I think about Jamie Kloss.
Yes, exactly.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What this little
I
13-year-old
know.
girl had to endure this
Exactly.
last, what was it, like 87 days or
Yeah,
something?
something like that. Yeah.
Oh, it breaks my heart to think not only was she a witness to her parents being killed, her mother right in front of her, but then to endure whatever she had to endure. We know the part about being trapped under the bed, and she's so young and so impressionable, and the work that needs to be done to realize that she is not to blame because he, a pedophile, chose her when he saw her coming on and off a bus. It's his sickness and his disease. It is not.
It's his, exactly. It's his inability to recognize his own health. I mean, people that commit crimes like that, they're just. I mean, again, I certainly do not want to dismiss, somebody that's been victimized by somebody like that. But often the case is those people have also been victimized themselves, and it's just a
figure out where he's coming from, like the Dirty John thing. His dad,
I'm not saying that
generations.
excuses it by any means.
No, but
if somebody was to understand that, say somebody like that had been abused as a child and then grew up to be an abuser, if they understood that they don't have to recreate this, they don't have to take that situation that happened in their past and relive it and bring it back to life, where they actually get to be the perpetrator this time, not the victim, because that's a lot of the thinking that goes along with that, is to, if I reenact it and I'm the one with power, then I'm somehow healing the past or fixing the past. And if they realize that that's just, that those thoughts, that they hold no merit, they're not, they like the thoughts of I was a victim, so therefore I now have to become a perpetrator, so I feel in control of my life. Those are all just thoughts that are absolutely taking somebody down the most horrendous path of pain.
But obviously, they need to be that pointed out to them, because
100%.
Again,
yes.
when you grow up in that situation, it's the familiar.
Exactly.
So you don't know any better.
You don't know that you have a choice.
Yeah.
That there is free will.
Exactly. And to understand. And that's
they just
a really
locked
wonderful
into that.
thing about the three principles. I understand now, and never really thought about it before, how it can help in the prison system.
Yeah.
Because the rehabilitation of somebody just changing the dialogue, the internal dialogue that makes them think that's their...
Well, to question
have no
it.
choice, to question it.
And just say, is this true?
Yeah.
Am I a victim in this moment in time, right now? I may have had some really terrible situations in my past that were very painful, but when you carry them into the future and you carry them like this weight on your back that this is a part of me, this will always be a part of me. I mean, we would ask somebody to, again, when you're in the midst of experiencing unbelievable trauma, and a horrible, agonizing situation, it would never be so insensitive as to say, well, forget that, that's just your thinking. It's not like that. I mean, when people, real life absolutely does impact us. But as we move on from those moments, we do have a choice of if we carry them with us or not.
Right.
If we keep recreating them, if we keep re-traumatizing ourselves. I mean, they use it a lot also in post-traumatic stress disorder.
Because you keep re-traumatizing and then adding something worse to it.
Yeah. And also, but in conventional therapy, they would say, well, that's people they have no control. That just keeps happening. I mean, they have no control over that. And in the three principles, we'd say, absolutely, we have no control of those events, coming back around, those memories coming back around, those thoughts coming around. But but understanding that our natural inherent well-being exists within all of us. Just like, when you cut yourself, you heal naturally, or just the intelligence behind life. Everything naturally heals itself. But just to know that exists within every single one of us, and that we are going to have those post-traumatic thoughts coming back into our head, revisiting us, because that's a habitual pattern that we've innocently helped create by fearing them or trying to change them or panicking or anything, rather than just sitting back and just saying, hey, they've surfaced again, they've come around again. But knowing that beneath those thoughts, that there is this incredible still waters. I mean, those post-traumatic stress disorder thoughts are like the waves. Say it's like big crashing waves. But even under a really stormy, choppy sea, there is, if you go down deep enough, there is that calm.
Yeah.
There's that please.
And
we
that's,
have that inside of us.
And that, could help so many people that are on the path of just not wanting to be here anymore.
Yeah.
Because they're suicidal from having PTSD.
Yes, absolutely.
So that just so lovely that you're going to, opening up the door to help so many people by bringing in the experts on how to apply.
Clinics as well. I've got there's a few people, 3 principals addiction clinics that are having incredible results too.
Because, I worked in rehabs for a very long time. And, most of the people that I worked with, they'd been there 3, 4, they just keep the repeaters.
Yeah.
Because they're in there doing the physical work, but not the emotional and spiritual work that they should be doing as well.
If they had this understanding, if they understood that every urge, every compulsion is just a thought, a very strong thought, for sure. Right. But if
what
they
you attach to it is up to you.
Well, and exactly, and and just to know that thought will pass. Again, it might feel very gripping in that moment, but it will pass, just as they always do. There's the up and down and up and down. But if they also know that they're not the addiction and they're not powerless. I mean, these are old modalities of, I am an addict and always will be, and I am powerless. I mean, the 3 principles would not agree with that statement.
No, of course not.
It's like you don't identify with your habits. They're not you.
No, and habits can change.
And habits can change.
It's a big thing of what I help people with,
Totally. Well, exactly. I mean, it's very, very similar with eating, because eating is a massive addiction.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what I see is in the rehabs, they shift from one addiction to another. So they're not doing heroin anymore, but now they're doing, they're smoking incessantly and they're overeating. Those 2 things pretty much go hand in hand a lot of time in rehabs. But to help people realize that that's not, they can break that pattern for good. And
it's so funny you should bring that up, but it's like, like comfort food. We attribute the feeling of comfort from the food.
The perpetrators of that, because we grow up, think about how you grow up. What's your reward?
Yeah, exactly. I know.
For being a good girl, for getting an A on a test, for being quiet during, office meeting that your parents were having or whatever, there is rewards that sometimes are not the best healthy. Yeah. And then what you're doing is you start a new pattern of unhealthy stuff because food has a lot to do with how we feel about ourselves, because it's got a physical effect on us and a mental one.
But even before that, you start salivating when you think of your favorite food or your comfort food. I mean, so clearly the food is not bringing you that, because you actually start to relax before you even eat the food.
Yeah.
So it's not the food that's actually, it's your thinking about that food.
Right, going back to the 3 principles. So it's very, very intricate and very, it goes deep. It goes really deep, and it's great that you are having a platform to dig in.
Yeah, really dig in.
Dig in deep and give people a chance to also benefit from all these teachers and what you have to say. I think it's so wonderful.
Yeah. And just to see the practicalities of it too, like I said, just, school bullying from, people committing petty crimes, get them, before they go into that system and really, really end up doing some...
well, you're stopping them in their tracks.
Exactly.
Which is what I was saying earlier. Had this John character had something like that stopped him from realizing he's not who his father told him he has to be, then all of those crimes would not have happened. He was murdered, so he would have been. He'd be here. It was self-defense, but
talking about prisons, I want to go back to some of the shows and talk about
some of our memorable moments.
Because
let's talk about that.
For me, one of the absolute the Emerging Leaders Academy with Clyde Terry.
Yeah,
where
tell our audience what that was.
Yeah, he was I probably get the time wrong, but I think it was a 27-year veteran of the LAPD.
Mm-hmm.
And he had so much compassion. He was around during the Crips and the Bloods and saw some horrific gang, behavior, deaths, and again the families that when you're born into that, it's a generational thing again. And he decided when he retired, he took all his retirement money and invested it in creating this foundation called Emerging Leadership Foundation. And he would take young kids that were coming out of prison. Some of them, I'm just remembering. I mean, one of the guests
we had one of them on, a young woman who was
Jackie.
She was a
Jackie
gang
Morello.
member. Yeah, Jackie.
And she was tried as an adult. I think it was like 16, and she came out of prison very early 20s. I want to say 21 or something. And it was the work that he did. He's affiliated with Agape Church.
Yes.
And he really took these young kids that really felt they had no other option. They'd also, made some unbelievable connections in prison which is unbelievable when you stick a, vulnerable 16-year-old in with hardened lifetime criminals. And he would take them out and he showed them that they had a choice. And that life, didn't have to be what their parents' life had been.
Right. What you think you're supposed to be doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he gave them options. And that, to me, was one of the most heartwarming shows.
No,
We've had him on
a couple of times.
Yeah.
And is he a Three Principles practitioner?
No, he's not. He's an agape.
Which has got this similar.
Well, it's definitely the spiritual. It has the spiritual understanding behind it,
which gets deeper into these kids' lives.
Absolutely,
that they can go that deep. That isn't who they.
Exactly.
Just because they were told or think that's what they're supposed to be, they don't have to be.
And also, what
he shows them the way out.
Yeah, what we say a lot is, we're spiritual beings having a human experience, and we're not here to sort of be so spiritual that we're not even on the planet. I mean, we're here. We're one.
Yeah.
We're spiritual beings and human beings, and we have to navigate this world while we're here, with the things that life throws at us.
Exactly.
But what Clyde does is he definitely helps them understand that there is something much deeper than what they've been exposed to before, which is just, dog eat dog. You've got to fight for everything you get in the world, and you've got to scrap, and you've got to, he teaches them that there's a much softer, more gentle, more loving way to live your life. So.
I think that's very powerful. And remember, and I forgot her name, she taught yoga in the prison system.
Oh yeah, and Ginny.
Yeah, Ginny Kuhn.
Kuhn, exactly.
And she, she did like a little documentary or a little explanation piece that she has on one of her websites. And what she did from interviewing the inmates and what they got out of, I think it was a news station that did a little piece on her. And what they got from these inmates, they just got a calmer sense of themselves. And that you don't always have to be on the defensive, and you don't always have to be the bully in order to be successful in life. Those are actually the opposite of success.
It's so funny. I mean, I think it was Stephen Covey said it's like situations should be win-win, because if you're dominating another person, all you're doing is basically inviting the domination back at some point. I mean, it's this self-perpetuating cycle of I get you, you get me, and you're just on this treadmill of aggression and one-upping somebody else, whether it's through physical violence or robbery or whatever it is. But if you can actually sort of have that respect for another human being and really allow for the space for you both to come out of the interaction feeling good about yourselves.
What a good win-win situation.
Exactly.
We did a show where I interviewed you, a while back on narcissism, which speaking of, narcissism is taking control, feeling powerful by taking control over somebody else.
Exactly. And what's so funny is now I would actually do that show a little differently, since I've got so much more into the three principles. Is instead of labeling somebody as a narcissist, I would say they're having narcissistic thinking, that they don't realize they have a choice as to whether they indulge in that thinking or not.
Right.
I mean, and again, it's not to sort of, because I do believe that everybody has the ability to change if they see where their experience of life is coming from.
That's
that
a very powerful statement.
Yeah, when they
I love
see
that.
it's coming from within them, not from anything external, your external situation or another person. When you know you're creating it for yourself, you have the ability to go, wait a minute.
Yeah,
Do I have to believe that thought? So if you feel like, I'm entitled or I have to dominate to get my way, with the understanding of the three principles, that narcissist, or rather that person with narcissistic behavior, would say, hey, wait a minute, is that true?
Yeah.
Do I really need to dominate everybody else?
It makes you question it.
Yeah.
You have to question it.
Am I really entitled to be selfish and put myself first? Or should I, how about the possibility of caring about how other people feel too?
God, that's a hard undoing one, but that's good to apply that. It's a process, you know, it's good.
Mm-hmm.
We also, I want to talk about just, to invite people, in the interest of time, to go to our YouTube channel, Del and Debi Mind, Body, Soul.
Which will stay up.
It's staying up because we're 4 times a year or so.
Yeah.
Del and I we're still a brand, and we're still going to interview guests together.
Yeah.
We've done so many. I mean, we had the Mud, the Malibu.
Oh, yeah, Malibu. Oh, it was the Mighty Underdogs.
The Mighty Underdogs. And it was Timothy Haslip and JP
Perot.
And the two of them started this.
That's when we all cried.
Oh my God! It was just
even our engineer
heartbreaking. And they're still doing it.
Yes.
And during the Malibu fires, those guys were out there. They were heroes out there getting things in because we couldn't get them in through land into Malibu. They were coming in through the ocean.
With their surfboards
and those guys
and
were huge. And if you haven't seen the show, we invite you to go to this YouTube channel. YouTube, bring some Kleenex because you too will be in tears. We've done shows also on people healing themselves, which is really, I think today, I hear so much about autoimmune diseases and celiacs, and like we talked about earlier, Crohn's and all different kinds of cancers and heart conditions, people taking blood pressure medication and IBS, all different kinds of irritable bowel syndrome, like colitis.
You bring up an important point. It's these illnesses, they're not just physical, they're mind body related.
That's the connection, which is why we're doing the show in the first place. And we have people that have actually healed themselves from every single thing I just mentioned. So again, we invite you to go to autoimmune. I mean, there's just so many ways that we have been able to introduce people to our audience on our YouTube channel to be able for you guys to access and see what applies to you or to a friend or a family member. So we're really inviting you to join that, and we're going to keep adding to it.
Well, let's just talk a little bit about who our first guests are going to be.
Correct. Okay.
So I will be having Bella Mahaya Carter on again. She's a Three Principles
on
our show. Yeah. She's a Three Principles writing coach, and which is amazing. So she does her coaching is more about how to use this understanding to really free yourself up, creativity.
I know you said you've taken her workshop, and it was
I'm taking it again.
Amazing. I'll talk to you because you had such a great reaction to it.
It's fabulous.
I would like to feel that feeling from writing. Since I'm writing a book, I think it would help me.
Yeah. So she's going to be my first guest coming on next week at 1 p.m. and Debbie also has her first guest lined up. So
for next week at 2 p.m. And my guest is Katie Norris, and Katie is a holistic nutritionist and wellness guru, and she has a line. She has recipes. She heals. She calls herself the organic healer, and she heals herself with food. She came out of a situation. We're going to talk about it on the show, but I believe that she had when you get bit by a deer,
Lyme's
disease, and she was able to cure herself again through self-care and food. And so she's created a line of, she has these energy essential wellness centers. She's a speaker. She goes on talk shows. So we're going to have her talk about everything she's about, what she's gone through and her products as well.
Wonderful.
So I
That's
invite
so
everybody to come in
exciting.
at 2
I will
o'clock.
definitely be tuning into that myself.
Yes.
So we're at our time.
I know.
But I just
we
wanted to
seem talk, I
say
can't.
I have just loved this last 2.5 years with you. And I know it's not goodbye. It's just going to be a little less frequently, but I am feeling so blessed and so grateful. Don't stop crying. I'm going to start crying. But I love you, and I love how we've grown together, and I'm excited for how we continue to grow separately and together.
Thank you, Del. From the bottom of my heart, right back at you. It's been an amazing 2.5 years. I'm so glad we were able to bump into each other and make this happen. I respect and adore you. I am so honored to call you my friend and my co-host now for life.
Mm-hmm.
And I will always carry every single thing we've talked about with me from a really special place.
And we're still going to do projects together. We're going to do workshops together. We're going to have one
retreats
planned.
and all kinds of things.
We'll be keeping everybody informed of what's coming next. I'm so excited.
We have to say stay tuned for that. Stay tuned, because we are some mighty women in our 60s, and we're going to help everybody live their best life. No matter where you're at, you can do the best possible life that you deserve to have, and we're going to help you get there.
Yes.
Yeah?
Love it. Okay. Well, thank you
Thank
so much
you.
for tuning in.
Love you.
And we will see you all next week.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for everything. We will see you next week in our separate places. Bye now.
Bye-bye. Thank you.